Alright, I understand that the Suicide Squad has not been out for too long, but I'm doing my spoiler talk today. Deal with it. So that is a solid spoiler warning. If you have not watched the Suicide Squad yet, probably shouldn't watch this video unless you don't care. You know the drill. So let's just dive right in. So the very first thing that happens in the movie, just to kind of get the ball rolling to set the tone, is, well, first of all, we hear Johnny Cash live at Folsom Prison Blues, which is a nice little nod, yeah. If you don't know that story, look it up. It's actually pretty interesting. But we see Savant Michael Rooker sitting in his cell, and a little goldfinch bird lands in the corner, and he just kills it with the ball. Right there, you're like, ooh, okay, yeah. This guy's got no regard for life. I think I know what kind of movie we're in for here. This movie's not gonna care about anything. And sure enough, it really doesn't. The big thing about the beginning of this movie is that half the characters that were marketed in this movie die within the first 15 minutes. Which I'm pretty sure a lot of people figured would be the case, since again, that's a lot of characters to be marketed for a movie. So we figured, alright, half of them, if not most of them, are probably gonna die. And so that's what happens. They're sent to Corto Maltese. We have Savant, Michael Rooker, we have Blackguard, Pete Davidson, T.D.K, Nathan Fillion, Mongal, Weasel, played by Sean Gunn, and Captain Boomerang, Jai Courtney, who we remember from the first Suicide Squad movie. And also we saw his wanted poster up in Birds of Prey. And so this A-team is being led by Rick Flag, and Harley Quinn is there too. And pretty much everyone on that team, except for Rick Flag and Harley Quinn, get killed. They all get shot up, Blackguard gets shot in the face, Captain Boomerang gets run over by a flaming helicopter, which is funny, because you're like, oh, there goes that character that we actually knew from another movie. Yeah, I was thinking he would last a little longer here, but no, he just smiles and dies. Javelin's also part of this team, he gets shot up and dies, and it's funny because he ends up giving his javelin to Harley Quinn, and so you're like, Harley Quinn with a javelin. Nice. And so yeah, all these people die and you don't really care about any of them, except for maybe Captain Boomerang. And Rick Flag and Harley Quinn escape to different places. And Amanda Waller's like, alright, B-Team, you're up. And it shows our main Suicide Squad for the movie, Bloodsport, King Shark, Ratcatcher 2, Polka-Dot Man, and Peacemaker. And they, along with Rick Flag and Harley Quinn, are gonna be our main Suicide Squad for this movie. I actually thought that was a pretty good opening, because it's like, okay, we got the rabble out of the way, now let's get into our main characters. Oh, and Savant. Savant sees all this crap going down and he's like, I'm gonna get out of here. And so again, to set the tone for the movie, Amanda Waller's like, I'm gonna blow up your head if you don't turn back. And sure enough, that's what happens. She blows up his head, and the little bird gets its revenge. Alright, let's talk about Bloodsport and his daughter, because I actually thought this was some pretty good character build-up right here. I'm guessing a lot of people are gonna compare it to Will Smith, Floyd Lawton, and his daughter in the first Suicide Squad movie, which I thought worked fine there. But in this movie, Robert Dubois and his daughter straight up hate each other. I love it. They're just screaming at each other, fuck you, no, fuck you. I was like, holy shit, that's a father and daughter screaming fuck you at each other. That's intense. Bloodsport's daughter being played by the main kid from A Wrinkle in Time. She's embarrassed to have him as a father. And so for him, this mission is kind of a redemption, you know? Maybe if he accomplishes this mission and does something right, his daughter will see him in a better light. But I did think that this scene was pretty good. There are a couple of cameos in this movie that people are like, oh, that character or that actor. First one being Calendar Man, played by Sean Gunn. When Polka-Dot Man comes out, Calendar Man's like, hey, I was wondering if my daughter could get you for her birthday party. I don't know why Calendar Man being in this movie was such a big deal. I guess it was for fans. And him being played by Sean Gunn in another role, like he does in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, so I guess that was kind of cool. However, can we talk about how this movie more or less shrugs off Birds of Prey? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't touch on Cassandra Cain's whereabouts at all. In the beginning, Boomerang asks Harley, he's like, what are you doing back in prison? And she's like, oh, I got road rage in a bank. I just wanted to be like, was Cassandra Cain with you? Did she get away? Is she in another prison? I don't know, the movie never touches on it. And I know for those of you who didn't like Birds of Prey, you're like, yeah, we don't care. But I did like that movie, man. I wanted to see some continuation there. There was one line she brought up later on, after she murders that dude. She was like, yeah, I was looking for red flags, and you killing kids, that was kind of a red flag with me. I was like, okay, so she still has kind of a soft spot for kids. I took that to mean she was referring to Cassandra Cain. That's how I saw it. So I'm guessing in a way she does still care for Cassandra Cain. Maybe when she got arrested initially, she pushed Cassandra Cain away so she would escape or something, I don't know. But alright, moving on. Our main Suicide Squad, Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, and the rest, they're going about their mission. And alright, so Polka-Dot Man, Abner Krill, played by David Dastmalchian. His whole backstory is that his mother was a scientist at Star Labs, which yeah, that is a tie-in with the larger DC extended universe, with Star Labs showing up in some of those Snyder movies there. But his mother experimented on her kids, giving them different powers and whatnot. Some of his siblings survived, some of them did not, and he was stuck with what he calls an interdimensional virus. He has to expel these polka dots from his body twice a day, otherwise they just take him over and he dies or something. I was like, alright, that's a deep enough backstory. But then he brings up that he sees his mother everywhere, which yeah, right, he's got big mommy issues, and most of the audience around me found that hysterical. Me, not so much. I just thought it was kind of dumb. I don't know, I found it weird. But the team is told that Rick Flag is being held hostage, and so they're told to go rescue him. And so I love this. Bloodsport and Peacemaker had this little like one-up contest. I like that. It was really entertaining. They're killing guys in all these really creative ways. Peacemaker uses what he calls a compression bullet with a delayed explosion. Bloodsport's like, no one likes to show off. And Peacemaker's like, unless what they're showing off is dope as fuck. To which Bloodsport's like, Damn, that's true. That was pretty funny. But then they get to Rick Flag, and he's like, yeah, this is Sol Soria. She's the leader of the Freedom Fighters. They saved my life. And it actually took me a second. I was like, why is the audience around me being like, oh shit? And then like 1 minute later, it hit me. I was like, oh, those are all the guys they just killed. Oh, yikes. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Oh, well. So the big thing, the mission, our goal in Corto Maltese is we're going after Project Starfish, which we learn, yeah, it's Starro the Conqueror. And we learn that the Thinker, Gaius Grease, played by Peter Capaldi, he's been working with this thing for like 30 years. So he knows more about it than anyone else. So that'll be good to know. We'll save that for later. Meanwhile, we have what Harley Quinn's been up to. Oh, but speaking of meanwhile, let's talk about those location title cards for a second. Because I will say, those are like the most creative location title cards I think I've ever seen in a movie. They're always like made up of the environment. I don't know, I just thought it was clever. Whoever's idea that was, props to you. It was probably James Gunn. But anyway, Harley Quinn has been captured by these military guys, and she ends up getting pampered by Mr. Silvio Luna. And when that scene was going on, I was like, okay, what is going on here? This is like the big Harley Quinn part of the movie? I don't know, for me, there was a part of me that just wasn't digging it, because I was like, what does this have to do with anything? It was funny-ish, sure, but I was like, does this scene have a point? And sure enough, the guy ends up proposing to her, to which she responds with a bullet. Yeah, she just ends up shooting him point blank in the chest. This is where she brings up the thing about him killing kids, and how I saw that as a reference to Birds of Prey. But I was like, okay, that's the Harley Quinn we all know and love. Good for her, man. After all, her tattoo on her back does say property of no one, so yeah, she's not about to end up with some other guy. In fact, I heard that Margot Robbie wants to push for Harley Quinn to end up with Poison Ivy in the DCEU, which yeah, I'd be totally down for. Let's get that Gotham City Sirens movie going finally. But anyway, we're in this nightclub now where we're meeting up with the Thinker, and this is where our second cameo comes in. Pom Klementieff, who plays Mantis in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Again, fans were going nuts. They were like, oh yeah, Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy, the MCU. I was like, alright. I didn't even recognize her without her antenna. I had to look it up. I was like, where is Pom Klementieff in the Suicide Squad? And then I found out, yeah, okay, she was a dancer in this nightclub. Alright, well, cool, I guess. But this is where the team gets a hold of the Thinker. He's gonna tell us more about this Jotunheim Project Starfish thing. Then we get to one of my favorite scenes in this movie, and that would be Harley Quinn's big escape. I love this scene, because after she murders that dude, all of his soldiers come after her, and so she's taking out all these guys with the javelin, and that Gigolo song's playing in the background, and we see all these cartoon birds and flower petals popping up, which we saw a brief glimpse of in the trailer, and I was like, what is that scene gonna be all about? And really, it just shows James Gunn's creative side, because really, there was no like logistical reason for all this cartoony shit to start showing up all of a sudden. The way I see it, this was how Harley Quinn was viewing her actions. Instead of blood coming out of everyone's necks, it's like flower petals and cartoon shit. I loved it. I was like, yeah, this is how Harley Quinn sees the world. Maybe it's how she justifies her actions or something. That or she's just fucking insane. Whatever the case, it made for one of the best scenes in the movie, in my opinion. So after that, the team meets up with Harley, so now we have our full Suicide Squad team. So here's where we get to a really interesting plot point about Starro, because Thinker reveals that the US government was involved in Starro's initial capture from space. And so the real reason that the squad was sent down here, it wasn't to destroy Jotunheim to save the city or whatever. It was really to cover up the fact that the US government was involved in this terrible thing. The US government made a deal with Corto Maltese to keep it hidden. So now that we have this information, we could leak it to the public. We could be like, hey, guess what? The US government was responsible for this big, huge, terrible Project Starfish thing. And this is what tears the team apart. This is really where the movie gets interesting for me. Yeah, it's all in like the second half. Cause Rick Flag is like, nah, fuck that. I am telling everyone I'm exposing us. To which Peacemaker's like, nah, I can't let you do that. I gotta defend the US at all costs. Yeah, like I said, he's a douchebag. And so we have this really cool Rick Flag versus Peacemaker fight, but not before Starro kills Thinker, because the bombs go off in the building, and so Starro starts to get out, and he takes Thinker, he's begging for his life, but he just tears him in half and throws him up against the window, and he just ends up a big gory mess. So you're like, alright, Thinker's dead. But hey, the Rick Flag versus Peacemaker fight, it's another one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I really liked how it was reflected in the helmet. We just see it lingering on the helmet, and we see the reflections of them fighting in the background. That was really cool. That was like something I've never seen before. And you can tell, this is like a fight to the death. And you're like, holy shit, alright. If either one of them died, that would be something. If Rick Flag died, that would kind of suck because we knew him for 2 different movies now, and he's a pretty cool character. But if Peacemaker died, that wouldn't make any sense, and his TV series would end up being like a prequel or something like Black Widow, which would also kind of suck. But it turns out that Peacemaker is the one who kills Rick Flag. And we really see it happen too. It's like a fatality from Mortal Kombat, because we see the shark going into Rick Flag's heart, and I was like, fatality. But then I was like, holy shit, Rick Flag just died. Yeah, that kind of sucks. Rest in peace, man. I loved his last words, though. Peacemaker, what a joke. I was like, holy shit, that cuts deep. Damn, Peacemaker. you suck. And then he's about to kill Ratcatcher too, and I was like, oh, hell no. She's like one of the best characters in this movie. Don't you dare kill her. Luckily enough, she gets saved by Bloodsport. He comes down crashing through all those layers of ceiling, which I was like, yeah, that's unrealistic. But he lands, and then there's like this Western shootout. They both fire their guns at the same time, but it turns out that Bloodsport's bullet is smaller, so it literally cuts through Peacemaker's bullet. That's really cool. And it ends up nailing Peacemaker in the neck. You're like, oh, okay, so Peacemaker's dead, I guess. So yeah, I was like, does this mean his HBO Max series is gonna end up being a prequel, like an origin story or something? That's kind of a bummer. More on that later. But then Starro gets out, and I thought Starro was completely awesome. It's just this big, giant starfish monster. Visually, I thought it looked really good. And it unleashes all those parasites onto everyone, and so the parasites get everyone except for the Suicide Squad. Somehow they managed to repel all the parasites away, which I did find a little bit unrealistic. I was also grateful though, because now I really like these characters. And so now Starro is just off on his rampage, and Amanda Waller calls them. She's like, all right, you're done with your mission. Starro's rampaging the city. That's not your problem. That's not the mission. You gotta go back to that Jotunheim building and destroy all the elephants. You gotta go back to that Jotunheim building and destroy all the evidence. And this is where the Suicide Squad has their big redemption thing. They're like, no, fuck that. We're gonna go save the city. And I love this, because this is where we really get to see Amanda Waller lose her shit. She's like, turn back, get back to the mission. This is your last motherfucking warning. I was like, holy shit, I've never seen her like this. And so she is about to kill them all. She gets the detonation buttons ready, and then she's knocked out by her own workers. And I, along with the rest of my audience, we were all like, holy shit, that was nuts. That was awesome. That to me was probably the most mind-blowing scene in the movie. I loved it. And so now it's the Suicide Squad versus Starro the Conqueror. Or rather, it's the Suicide Squad versus Starro's little parasite-controlled lackeys. Polka-Dot Man dies though. That was, okay, here we go. I do like the fact that he dies, but I wasn't really a huge fan of the way he went out. The fact that Bloodsport's like, it's your mom! And so he envisions his mom as a giant just rampaging through the city instead. And so he unleashes a bunch of polka dots, and it ends up like frying one of its legs. And then he's like, I'm a superhero, we saw in the trailer. But then I could see it coming. I was like, let me guess, he's about to die, right? And yeah, sure enough, he does. He turns to Bloodsport, he's like, I'm a motherfucking superhero, and then he just gets squashed like a pancake by one of Starro's legs. And I didn't really care. I was like, bye. I don't know, man. I think it could have really worked if they gave him a better death than that. Something more noble, I don't know. Like, he fries one of the legs of Starro, and then instead of just getting squashed or something, maybe have a parasite get him. That could have made something more emotionally impactful in the movie. Because then the rest of the squad could have been like, oh, fuck, we don't want to kill you, man. I think that could have been pretty cool. But I do like how Starro is eventually taken down. It's Ratcatcher 2, baby! She summons thousands and thousands of rats, and they swarm up Starro. We see the flashback to her backstory, with her as a little kid and her father played by Taika Waititi. And I really like this, because her father's like, rats are among the most hated animals in the world. If they could have a purpose, why can't everyone? I was like, oh, that's so good, because that's like a metaphor for the Suicide Squad characters themselves. They're super villains, they're hated by everyone, but now they have a purpose. They're gonna save the city. That really worked for me. And so Harley Quinn takes a javelin and dives right into Starro's eye, and she sees all the rats swimming in and chewing up the nerves. I was like, oh, that's gross. Okay, yeah, Starro's dead. Because I'll be honest, when Starro first got out, I was like, how are they gonna take this thing down? I honestly couldn't think of anything. But hey, rats chewing up its insides is as good a method as any. And so we see Starro going down, its eye starts filling up with blood. And again, I really like its last words here. It talks through that one general guy, and he's like, I was happy, floating, staring at the stars. I was like, oh, fuck, I'm about to feel bad for Starro. Cause yeah, Starro was just out in space minding its own business when we human beings had to fuck with it. We had to capture it, bring it down to Earth, and make it our weapon or some shit. Yeah, what can I say? Humanity can be dicks sometimes. It's true. And so yeah, Starro is taken down, the city is saved. Victory! And so in the epilogue, I like this, because Bloodsport ends up blackmailing Amanda Waller, because he's like, all right, we got this footage now of Americans messing with Starro, so let us all go and make sure that my daughter is safe, and I'll ensure that this footage never sees the light of day. Otherwise, it's going all over the place. And Waller can't do anything about it. She's like, all right, you win, Bloodsport. Told you I'd make you a leader. I was like, damn, how do you like a taste of your own medicine, Waller? Because that's what she does. She blackmails supervillains. But now that's been done to her, and I was like, shit, didn't see that coming. And so our 4 survivors of this mission are Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, and Harley Quinn. Yes, I was very glad that Harley Quinn survived, so that we may yet see her again in another movie. I don't know what yet, but we'll see, hopefully. Gotham City Sirens. But then we have a mid-credit scene, which shows that Weasel is alive after all. Yeah, in the very beginning of the movie, Weasel was dropped into the ocean, and it's like, Weasel can't swim! Oh, he drowned and died. Before the mission even got going, we have our first casualty. But no, Weasel's alive. Alright. good for him. And so he just kind of hobbles off, and that's that. Then we get to our much more interesting post-credits scene, where it's revealed that somehow, miraculously, Peacemaker is still alive after being shot in the neck by Bloodsport. I don't know how he survived that, honestly. Maybe he's a super soldier, because he did describe himself as a douchey Captain America. But then again, I don't think Steve Rogers could survive a bullet through the neck, so there goes that excuse. I hope they explain that in his series. But yeah, those doctors are like, alright, we need him to save the fucking world. So I'm like, alright, this is set up for his HBO Max series that's coming in January. So I'm guessing this series is not going to be a prequel series after all. Good. Which yeah, I am totally down and I'm looking forward to this series for sure. But I'm not sure if I'm going to be willing to root for a douchebag. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But in the end, the Suicide Squad, it was fine, like I said. I didn't love it to death as much as everyone else apparently does, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be one of my top 10 favorite movies of the year. I'll be honest. But I had a good time with it, and I do want to see some of these other characters later on in the DCEU. I'd love to see more Bloodsport, more Ratcatcher 2, more Amanda Waller, and of course, more Harley Quinn, because I always want to see more Harley Quinn. But as for right now, The Suicide Squad. Have you seen it now that it's out? What do you think about it? And who is your favorite character in the movie? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.